Those idiots! They're destroying everything! How can I take over the city and build the Eggman Empire if there is no city? I'm at my limit. I have no choice! Send in the Eggman fleet! Charge!
I bet no one expected this baby could fly.
I transported this brilliant flying fortress to this planet over 2,000 years ago. It's magnificent, the perfect killing machine, ready to oppose terror in unimaginable ways. Do these fools really believe they can stop me?
Isn't that the doctor?
Shadow, do not fear me.
This could be a very tough competition between Black Doom and his army, and especially notable with Dr. Eggman alongside with his robots, of course. Whoever will run supreme with conquering the universe or something. So, who knows? We're able to know what we find out. Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Let's Play of Shadow the Hedgehog for the Nintendo GameCube, PlayStation 2, and of course, Xbox. So, last time we actually did manage to completely done with the last stage 3 levels, and that is of course my favorite stage in the entire game, which is of course Circus Park. And today for this episode is the fact that we're about to be getting things started with the stage 4 layout, starting with Sky Troops, which is essentially a combination of both somewhat of a sky environment, and at the same time the entire structure feels exactly as similar to how it does it in Glyphic Canyon from stage 2, but except the fact that it takes place in the skies. So even then though, that it might look exactly the same, but well, apart from the fact that it takes place in skies above. So that's as far as we can able to consider some of these differences anyway. So but in order to actually access to Sky Troops is the fact that if you couldn't tell from the last video, or actually the last few episodes actually, in order to actually get to Sky Troops, you can either go to Glyphic, no, not so much for Glyphic Canyon, but in the forms of like Cryptic Castle if you do the Hero mission, or you can able to do the Dark mission in the, well, Circus Park. And then once you're done with either these two missions, well, at least one of them anyway, then this will actually lead you to this level. So, again, not that very complicated to get in there, because either way though, that, again, if you really want to go for, like, for the first time playing this game, then you normally go for the normal pathway, but in forms of the neutral pathway. So, again, nothing too expected for this point. So even then though, yeah, today was actually by the forms of, the 14th of March, so, I believe today, especially consists of by the forms of most of our countries anyway, that Captain Toad Treasure Tracker Special Episode DLC has been released today. Although, originally that Piglet might actually come back to that particular game for when it comes to like tackling through DLC stuff exponentially. But however though, he needs to wait for a while, so even then though, he might take some time before until like next Monday or so. That way, when next Monday comes around, then I was sure that he would able to actually go ahead and deal with the forms of the DLC stages in Captain Toad Treasure Tracker from that, specifically on the Switch version, because, you know, the 3DS version is pretty much screwed over. So, because, you know, the 3DS is, eventually it might actually go ahead and end its life exponentially. I'm hoping so, because even then, you know, we're moving on to the actual Nintendo Switch, of course. So even then, though, that makes it super obvious at this point. So, and also, we've only got ourselves about, like, 2 more days to go until, like, I would say 2 days left, because either way, you know, we've only got 2 more days to go until the SXSW Panel 2019 on Sonic the Hedgehog Department and Chaos Control! We're going fast, like, hyperbolic. Anyway, that's not the actual right word I have to say. Anyways, though, yeah, I'm looking forward to see how this will turn out, especially by the forms of the entire weekend, even though I mentioned about this before, that me and Pinkie Pie will mention about it more on that until whenever we go back to Super Mario Party for this weekend. So, to be expected at this point, then you probably get the idea for that point. So, yeah, you get the idea. And also, I've realized about this is the fact that I'm presuming we're almost at the halfway point already by the forms of this particular Let's Play so far, even though we're now on to the 8th part so far, so we've only got ourselves about, like, I would say 17 levels to go, although I may be wrong, because I actually missed count on that specific stuff for this matter, but either way though, I will find things out exponentially. So even then though, for the most part, much like any forms of Cryptic Castle, is the fact that we need to able to ride onto that specific black creature again, but thankfully though, it's actually a lot more freedom to able to actually just to fly around in, unlike any forms of how it does it on that pretty much stubborn stuck area on the forms of Cryptic Castle, because if you accidentally go to the far left or the far right, depends on what side of the building you might actually accidentally run into, well, chances are you might end up getting stuck, or in this case if you manage to able to decrease your black creature's health down. So you just have to mind that for that particular point. So there's the egg carrier right there, and sure enough, we're done with the normal mission.
You're not getting away from me this time, Doctor.
So now we are doing, I would say we might as well go for a dark mission next, because even then we'll save the hero mission for later.
Shadow, the foolish scientist still seeks to resist us. Use our cannons and blow his ships out of the sky.
So anyways though, yeah, in the dark mission on this level though is the fact that if you couldn't tell at this point, that we must able to be sure that we need to destroy every single Eggman's air fleet. So because of that, there are only 5 of them in total, so naturally it's not that bad, and it's pretty easy to able to actually get used to at this one form or another. So yeah, that's as far as I can consider this factor. So anyways though, let's go ahead and continue upwards, and sure enough we can able to just go ahead and actually I just need to mention about this actually.
I've got to get on board the Doctor's flagship.
Destroy the aliens' power units.
I've got...
Annihilate the scientists' battleships.
So yeah, I forgot to do that. So because of that though, I think I should probably point things out right away. There's going to be a few times I keep on forgetting about the forms of the actual mission comments, or in this case the actual mission dialogues on the pausing menu. But hopefully though we can able to actually continue from this point and onwards for those of you ever misleading by the forms of how the fact that what that mission structure is for. So anyways though, this level can be very long if you really want to go for like all 3 missions separately, but because of the fact the matter is though is the fact that we have to do with a lot of platforming around here, and because we need to able to get used to with that particular walker thing right there, which I will admit though right away, is not as perfect as the walkers by the forms of in Sonic Adventure 2 for both if you either play as Tails or Dr. Eggman in Sonic Adventure 2, at least in the actual walker controls in that game in Sonic Adventure 2, controls just fine, but except by the forms of the actual level design can get pretty much cheap enemy placement heavy. So, at least the forms of the walker in this game, it just feels incredibly, well, loose-weighted, and especially noticeable by the fact that I hate the forms of the hovering ability on that specific walker, because it doesn't go that much further from that. So it's kind of like how it did on the Sonic 06, where in Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, where if you play as Omega on that game, that if you hold down the jump button when you're in mid-air, Omega's hovering maneuvering, it just drops. So even though that's how I can feel like the same thing for the hovering, you know, specific hovering on that specific walker machine. So I think that might be okay for some purposes, but most of the time you might get yourself screwed over most of the time. So yeah, you get the idea for that point. So yeah, in order to actually destroy the actual Eggman's fleet, by the forms of that specific dark mission, is the fact that you have to majority use the actual cannons until you're able to actually just go ahead and just you know, destroy them. But if you do that, then chances are it gives you a good advantage. You can also destroy those little you know, these little arm cannons and stuff like that. Well, in this case, by the forms of the crosshair cannons or something like that, or the actual like just cannons in general. But yeah, these can be destroyed as well if you really want to be more precise with the actual aiming shot of the cannons. So that's as far as memories goes. That's what I really can say about this here. I really do like the actual music of this level though, because it feels kind of, feels almost like the atmospheric, because it does perfectly fit well with the actual music tone for this level alone. I will say this matter though, alongside with Circus Park, is the fact that this level is actually very good as well. Even though, that's not to say they're all good, because some of these levels, when we get to the next stage 4 levels, oh my god, how can I even describe the next level after this? And believe me while I'm saying this, it might take me a lot of dragging moments here and there, even by the forms of how the fact that for the majority of stage 4 levels, the only exception is of course the well, I'm not gonna spoil things too much of it yet, but other than the fact that, well, until the next 2 stage 4 levels that, well, some of them are pretty easy and pretty much stand out to be, but the majority of the time until the next level, oh my god, I can't stand that next level after this. Well, you'll see why in just a moment until tomorrow's video, so because of that though, yeah, and also the reason why I need to say this right now, that I need to able to upload some of these Shadow the Hedgehog videos at this point, up until when it gets to the point when Duffy needs to get onto the redo Let's Play of Sonic Lost World for the Nintendo Wii U. Well, at least beyond that, about the fact that if some of these more information about, you know, some more Sonic coverage, stuff like that, so naturally we're able to wait during that time. So, anyways though, so, yeah, I can see why that most people seem to think that, well, at least for me anyway, that I think this level can be very long and lengthy at times, is because, well, we need to able to keep on getting onto this particular black creature to hold on to, and, well, what do you think I am while I was going to be doing Black Doom? I was trying to able to use this until when he's got, well, possessed, and, well, he's not being exploded or anything, he was just there for the forms of consciousness, well, unconsciousness, I have to say so for this matter. So that way I can able to ride onto him. So, yeah, I believe we have to come across into that specific segment like 3 times. It depends on what missions you're in. Either the normal mission, or the dark mission, or the hero mission. Where we have to go through all that stuff for about 3 times. So, yeah, because of that though, this might take a while to able to get there. So anyways, there's the last egg fleet right there. And luckily though, those cannons, even though I'm almost going to screw up right there, just because of that sliding maneuvering is kind of slippery at points. And basically you just have to fire it underneath it. So that's basically how this goes with the dark mission in, you know, Sky Troops. But apart from that though, well, they're clearly there for the sake of buddy forms about the fact that as long as you know what you're doing with this particular mission, it's not that bad actually, because either way though, they showed up pretty easily, especially buddy forms of the actual guys themselves.
Doctor, I have no further use for you.
And let's just be kind to Dr. Eggman for at least, for another time, but this time around though, with a hero mission.
Oh, Shadow, fancy running into you here. There's got to be some kind of peculiar power source that's keeping these ruins afloat. Find it and destroy it.
So, the hero mission in Sky Troops, it feels exactly similar to the forms of how it does it in the Dark mission in Glyphic Cannon, but except that, well, it feels kind of like the same thing for here, but as opposed to able to touch in the drawers in order to actually activate it, instead, we need to destroy the forms of the actual, temple tablets, because either way, if you don't like about, as you can see on the actual, like, counter right there, once again it shows us only about 5 of them, because I'm pretty sure that, you know, this is basically a continuation, as I said this before, it's basically a continuation portion of Glyphic Cannon, but except, you know, it takes place in the skies, and plus there's no wind to be able to actually just take a ride on, like the forms of like what Knuckles always says, like, help, we've been sucked in, or anything like that. So, but even then though, instead, that's, you know, you get the idea for that point. So, anyway though, and for that point of, that worth mentioning though, is the fact that this might be the only time that Eggman is actually going to be on the hero mission. So because of that though, when we get to later on though, that he will be on the actual dark mission again. Because of that though, we'll mention more on that later, because either way though, that again, the stories themselves in this game is all over the place, and it's also very confusing at times, because if, depends on what pathways you go to, it can either lead you to nonsensical moments, or in this case, for this matter, well, pretty much any single part about the story is just a jumbled up mess, alongside with Sonic 06's story that does have a very messed up story as well, due to the actual time traveling aspect, which, by its own thing, just makes nonsensical to me with the forms of the time-traveling plots and stuff. Well, at least, it makes sense for Back to the Future by the forms of Part 1 and 2, because in that way, and also Part 3 as well, because in those Back to the Future trilogy films, at least it makes it obvious because they used a DeLorean to travel back in time with between the past, present, and future. At least it makes it obvious at that point. And if you couldn't see, that I do apologize by the forms of the, you know, the lack of, you know, the flickeriness or something like that for that particular, you know, that Walker is being keep on damaging a lot is because, again, due to my capture card issues sometimes, where for actually trying to rendering by the forms of the actual invincibility frames, by the forms of certain you know, obstacles like that. So it happens in most capture cards these days, but that's just how I think it is. So there we go, that's 3 done, and only 2 more to go. So naturally the 4th one is going to be inside in here, so it's actually not that hard to able to actually get there. So naturally speaking, that's all I can really think about for the time. And so far anyway, when it comes to like any kind of missions in this game offers, well, the only few exceptions which there are, I would say Glyphic Canyon's hero mission, because I accidentally died on that particular mission. But apart from that, then I actually did that pretty good so far when it comes to getting A ranks and stuff so far. Well, aside from the Black Bull first fight, and especially noticeable with, you know, I said this before, Glyphic Canyon hero mission, because I accidentally died by that, you know, wonky collision detection at times, even with the tripping up the forms of the actual edge of the actual pathway. But I digress. So let's just hope if we can able to still hold up strong with the forms of the A ranking system on this particular game so far. Well, at least most of the time, not normally though, because even then, when we get to the later missions, specifically in some missions later on, oh my god, it gets really tedious after a while, even by the forms of how the fact that when we get to like in the actual maze-like levels, particularly on tomorrow's video, and especially noticeable with the next stage 4 levels, oh man, I'm not looking forward to that. So, yeah, the last temple thing right there is just on top here, so I think we should probably end things off from here. So join me next time. The Let's Play Shadow the Hedgehog is the fact that we're about to be moved on to the worst level in the entire game, which, if you couldn't tell at this point, is the Doom, the 2nd, 4th stages of the stage 4s.
I cannot betray the doctor.
But let me tell you right now, the Doom level can go to hell, because I'll tell you that tomorrow. So see you guys next time. Later, fellas. Oh, God.